So hello, my name is Rhianna. Welcome to this video. Today I'm going to talk about some children's books that I've recently read. So in adulthood, I usually read literary fiction or adult fantasy, although I do try to make my reading as varied as possible. However, when I was a kid, I mainly read children's books, obviously. I'd love to say I was out there reading War and Peace, but was very much Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, Fablehaven fan. And I think as an adult, I'm naturally not as drawn to those stories. Oh, well, I am to those ones, but maybe not drawn to like children's stories as a whole, because I am an adult and just I feel more connected with the stories of adults than I do with the stories of children. However, I think there is a place for children's books in adulthood because they are so full of wonder and imagination, and I think they can really make you feel happy, and who doesn't want to feel happy? Also, I mentioned Fablehaven earlier. Fablehaven I feel is quite underrated. I loved it as a kid. It shaped me as a human. Fablehaven is about a brother and a sister who go to live with their grandfather. Their grandfather runs a farm, but instead of having like a pig and a chicken and a cow on the farm, he has like mythical creatures. So cool. But in this video I'm going to talk about some books that I've recently read that I hadn't read before. So I have 3 children's books that I recently read, which I was inspired to do so because I wanted to read more children's fiction as an adult. And I decided to pick 3 books that were written in the 21st century because I looked at like a long list of like the best books of children's books of the 21st century and picked 3 from it. So those books are The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon, How to Train Your Dragon by Cressida, Cowell, and Nevermoor by Jessica Townsend. I'll talk about Nevermoor at the end, just to say, one of my favourite books. What a great book, love that one. And so without further ado, here's some of my thoughts about those books. So the first book I want to talk about is The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon, and I've been familiar with this book for quite a while because when I was at school, a different English class to mine read the book, and so I was aware of it then, but I didn't read the book simply because when I was a child, I really predominantly just read fantasy and anything that was set in the real world. I was like, that is not escapism enough for me and I'm not going to read it. So that's why I didn't read it. But the title always intrigued me, and I remember a friend telling me that the chapters were in prime numbers because the protagonist likes prime numbers. I thought that was cool. So what is this book about? This book is about a 15-year-old boy who has autism, and the book is written from the first person perspective of him, and he's writing the book in like the story. So his therapist, I think she has told him to try and write to get out his feelings, and so that is what the book is. And he is inspired to write the book because a dog is murdered in his neighbourhood, and it's a mystery, and he knows mystery novels, and so he starts the story out like a mystery novel. He goes around to the different people in this neighbourhood trying to work out who killed the dog, so there is that mystery element to the story. But as the novel progresses, it changes more from a mystery story to a family drama, and its approach to looking at what it's like to live with autism is done really well because it's from the first person perspective of the main character. You really get to understand how his brain works and see the world from his perspective. And I think that was my favourite part of the book because I love books that let you go into someone else's brain, because for one, it's quite fun to take a step outside of your own brain for a while and live within someone else's, and also it just changed the way that I looked at things, and a book that can make you change the way that you look at things is amazing. Also, I was listening to it on audiobook, and on my way to work, on my way back from work, and I get the tube, and there's a part in the story where the main character gets a tube in London, and it was just quite cool listening to a story that was on the tube while I was on the tube. I think this novel also had a really good plot. There is a part halfway through the novel which made my mouth go agape. I was shocked at what happened, and that was fun. And a quote that I like is, sometimes we get sad about things and we don't like to tell other people that we are sad about them. We like to keep it a secret. Or sometimes we are sad but we really don't know why we are sad. So we say we aren't sad, but we really are. So yeah, a really great book, great writing style, great plot, and it changed my perspective on things. The next book I read is How to Train Your Dragon by Cressida Cowell, and I read this because I loved the movie and I was intrigued to see what the book is like. Now, to my surprise, the book is very different to the film. So in the book, we have the protagonist Hiccup, which is the same as the film, and Hiccup finds a dragon called Toothless. Now, Toothless is not a very admirable dragon. The other kids kind of make fun of Hiccup for having this dragon because the dragon isn't very well behaved and isn't really a sought after dragon, and it's quite comical, the dragon. Whereas in the film, I remember it slightly differently because I think the dragon is like a rare dragon in the film, but that's not the case in the book. I feel like I would need to rewatch the film now that I've read the book to really talk about the discrepancies like completely accurately. But just the vibe of the book, quite different from the vibe of the film. And I also listened to this on audiobook. It's narrated by David Tennant, and he does a great job of doing all the voices and really brought the story to life. And children's books are great to listen on audiobooks, I find, more so than any other like genre, I suppose you could say, of book, because there's often lots of different quirky characters and the narrators can really like create interesting voices. And also I find that in children's audiobooks they often have like music in the background, and in adult audiobooks they don't. I feel like there needs to be more like music in the backgrounds of adult audiobooks. And I think one of the reasons I loved this book is because of the funny lines. So one of them is 12 days north of hopeless and a few degrees south of freezing to death. But as well as being comical, the book also has a lot of themes about life and death and family, and kind of hits you in the feels as well. Some lines are, "It is a lot easier to be brave when you know you have no alternative," and "We're all snatching precious moments from the peaceful jaws of time." And you know what I quite like about children's books is it just often like tells you how it is. For example, it just says it's a lot easier to be brave when you know you have no alternative. It's similar in other children's books, like in Harry Potter you have a lot of quotes like that, like you should choose between what's right and what's easy, something like that. And I think you can get the same in adult books, of course, but I find that in adult books it's often more nuanced, which has its benefits and is arguably better because it maybe gives you more thinking grounds. But there's something quite nice about children's books and how it just like plainly tells you things, and yeah, you don't have to think as much. So yeah, a great book. But I feel though as though this the book is more of like a fantasy comedy, and I think it would appeal more to children than adults, whereas the movie, in my opinion, appeals more to like a wide range of people, children, adults, all of that. Yeah, but great, I had a great time. Okay, the final book I want to talk about has become one of my new favourite books of all time, I would say, and it's Nevermoor by Jessica Townsend. So this book is about a young girl called Morrigan Crow, and she lives in this fantasy world where children are cursed. Some children are cursed, and if the children are cursed, there is this time called Eventide when the children are like 12 and they get killed by the hunt of smoke and shadow because they are cursed children. And the people who aren't cursed don't want the cursed children around because they believe that the cursed children are causing problems. A little bit complicated to explain. And then on the evening of Eventide, Morrigan gets like taken, not kidnapped, but she gets taken by Jupiter North, who is great, and he takes her to Nevermoor, and there she competes in trials to become part of the Wondrous Society, which Jupiter is part of. And in the Wondrous Society they all have like special skills and powers and just have a good time. And I loved the like intricacies of this and the specificities in this because it really created a magical and fun world and made it feel real, because I think specificity really helps you make a fantasy place seem like a real place. And the plot had twists and turns as well. In the Wondrous Society, the children and the adults, they all have a knack. And a knack is like your special skill. And Morrigan, throughout the story, doesn't know what her knack is. And so there's a mystery about what is her knack. And you want to keep reading because you want to find out what her knack is. And you feel that maybe I felt that maybe the payoff wouldn't be that satisfying, but it was when we find out what her knack is, and there's a big twist, and there are like characters, and can you trust those characters or not? And I love that, because you're like trying to read between the lines and like guess if they're a good or bad person. And I think this story is kind of like the perfect children's story, because it has fun characters, especially Jupiter North, who is like an eccentric fun owner of a hotel where Morrigan stays, but even though he's like eccentric and fun, he also knows when to be serious, and I appreciate that, because if someone is like eccentric and fun all the time, you feel like there are no stakes, but he gets serious when the stakes are getting a bit high and things could go really wrong, and I like that. I also really enjoyed just the sense of wonder, and how in Nevermoor and in the Wonder Society, like possibilities are endless, and the writer Jessica Townsend really used like that to her full advantage. Like she really created so many fun and whimsical things within the story, and like children's books often have, it had quite a nice quote about life, and it said, the point is, as far as the society is concerned, if you are not honest and determined and brave, then it doesn't matter how talented you are, which I think is a really good message to give to children. Also, something exciting to say is that this book seems to be being adapted into a musical, which sounds great. I think it would make a great musical. So much fun. So those are some children's books I read recently. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you in another video soon. Bye bye.